Hi folks, I'm Jessica. I'm here at Always in Stitches in Noblesville, Indiana. And Peter is with me. He's behind the camera. Say hi, Peter.
Hi, everybody.
So today we're playing around with things that might help you. We're going to call this our knit clinic because sometimes you need a little help, like call the doctor, something's wrong. So today I thought I'd show you a few tricks and we'll just play with them. So this first thing for our knit clinic is a situation that happens all the time. You're knitting along and something, oh no, my stitch. I've got a stitch that I just dropped, and you see there's something happening down here, and there's these lines across my knitting. That's my drop stitch. When I see something like that, one of the first things I do is I go and get an emergency medical tool called a safety pin. Safety pins are wonderful. This one comes with a brown hair. How exciting. That's because I've got curly brown hair. So when I drop a stitch, I like to catch it. So here I am finding the loop that's still a stitch and catching it. So now I've pinned it so it's not going to run down any further. And now what I have to do is bring that stitch back up. So what I'll often do is I'll often go get a crochet hook. I can take this knit stitch, I'm pinching it, and I can stick my crochet hook in that loop. Oh, it's going to try and come out. There it is. Caught it. So it's really easy now on a stockinette like this to go under the ladder, catch the loop, pull it through the loop that's on my hook. I can just do that all the way up to the top. And there, one more. And now I can put it back on my needle. So that's how I did it with a crochet hook. Pretty straightforward. I can mess it up again and, oh my goodness, what if I don't have my crochet hook? I don't even have a safety pin this time. I can stick my needle in there. And now I can go under, let's see. Peter, can you actually see what I'm doing? I'm taking the tip of my right hand needle under that ladder. And then I'm going to use my left hand needle
Like
and
right under.
lift the loop over the ladder. And then I'm going to do it again. Under to pick up the ladder, grab the loop, pull it over the ladder.
You know, when I came back, I did.
Oh, and I've got two more ladders to do. Under the ladder to pick it up. Just like if you're used to binding off, you can just bind it off. Oops, did we get it all? I've got something funny going on here. Oh, that was my loose yarn at the back. One more. Here it is. And then all I do is scoop under, pull it over, and then I can put it back on my needle.
Not gonna do.
And there you go. That run stitch is knit back together. It's been caught, it's been work, and I didn't have to rip out my whole piece to make it happen. So there you go. Hope that helps. Welcome to Knit Clinic. We're going to talk about darning. I brought some socks. All right, folks, this is Jessica, and we're doing a knit clinic. This is a pair of my commercial wool socks. Now, for the record, I do not usually darn commercial socks. The yarns are kind of thin and they're kind of cheap compared to my hand-spun, hand-knit socks, or even my hand-knit socks in general. But these are kind of a favorite pair, and I thought they'd be wonderful to show you things, because here, look at the back. You see this white spot? That's a section where the wool has worn away, and obviously there's some sort of nylon or other reinforcing thread in there. And you can still see the knit stitches, which means it's a perfect time to darn and to fix these socks. If you've already gotten to the point that there's a full-blown hole there, you can still fix them, but it's easier when it's just worn through like this. So we'll show you a couple techniques. I'm going to show you, I hope, how to weave a patch, how to knit a patch, how to pick up the knit stitches, and how to just cover a hole with more knit stitches. There's all sorts of things. We'll see how far we get. I brought my amazing, wonderful wooden pair. Some of you may be familiar with darning eggs. My mother still uses her darning egg. I haven't inherited it yet. I'm not sure I ever will. So I went out and I bought a darning pair. It's not really labeled as a darning pair. I think when I got it from Hobby Lobby, it was just a piece of wooden fruit. And I'm like, oh, that's the right shape for what I need to provide a little stretch and a little support behind what I do. So what I do, and you can do this with a egg-shaped thing or even just something somewhat spherical. I'm just going to put it in my sock. And here at the heel, you can see how nice it stretches things just enough. Oh, it's actually catching. There we go. It stretches things so that I have a better view of what's going on and what's needed. Now, when I want to darn something, I try and match thread size. So I brought a couple of skeins and I wasn't sure any of them would work. This one's nice and strong contrast, which makes it easy for you to see, but it's really kind of thick compared to the yarn of my sock. So I don't think this one's the right size. It's too big. I'm a weaver at home, and so I have all sorts of other threads. This is also a wool thread, much thinner. I think it's going to make a nicer patch. And so the first technique I'm going to do is the sewing/weaving technique. I'm going to use a length of my thread. I try not make it too long because then it just gets tangled. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on a tapestry needle, and so kind of a blunt end on this. And I'm going to make a big woven patch. So I'm going to take some threads and go this way and then this way and make a whole bunch of parallel lines. And then I'm going to come back and weave in the verticals. So I just find a spot. This is the low spot on my hole. So I come in way over here off to the side and just weave in. And this is nice because I still have that structure on my sock. I'm going to leave a tail that I can weave in again later. Come about over to there. Now, if I were doing this properly, I would choose a thread color that would hide. But this bright red is easier for you to see on camera. I'm just going to go in and out for a bit. If I had a gaping hole here, I would just go straight across. And in fact, that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to catch once or twice in the threads that are left. But I mostly want this exposed. One of the nice things about repairing is that you can pretty much do your repairs however you want. So there are lots of ways to do this. Find something that works for you. If you can't see these tiny threads, then please use something bigger. If you just need it different, make it different. One of the reasons why I like to use thin threads for my patching is that I feel it less on my feet. So sometimes with a big patch, I feel it a lot more, and then it feels like I've got something stuck in my shoe. So I try and go as thin as I can, and I'm trying to not match up those. So it's going to take a while to do this. I'm going to pause here and just shift. Oh, I should have pulled my needle. I heard it tear some of those threads. I'm going to get over here to the edge, and then I'm going to pause. And we're going to pretend that I wove all of this back and forth and back and forth. And now I'm going to come back, and I'm going to do my verticals. So here I go. I'm going to cheat and come back up here. And when I'm ready, I just start going up and down this direction, creating a patch. Now I'm going to... Am I good?
Okay.
All right, and then I come back in, and if I went over that before, I go under it this time. Because I've got that groundwork still there, I am trying to catch into that. But here I go, back into this. Just over, under, let's see, I've got to go over. I went over, under, over, so this has to go under, over, under. It doesn't look super pretty, but it's very effective. And it just builds in that protective bit, and you'll walk on it just fine. So here it is, a little bit woven. And so just across the whole hole, all parallel one direction, and then over under the other direction. And then it'll close the hole and keep you wearing a pair of socks, especially if they're hand knit. You want to keep them in use as long as you can. I wanted to show you a different way of darning a hole in a sock. This particular hole, you can see the white threads. They're worn, but they're still there. So I wanted to show you how to do a duplicate stitch to reinforce those. I'm going to take my darning pear, just wooden pear-shaped thing, stick it in my sock. That helps to hold the sock open. You can see there's some bits of lint and stuff in there still. That's what I'm looking at. But I'm going to take my thread. This is a wool thread. It's very fine. I try and match my working thread to the thread size used in the sock. If you've been making socks with knitting socks with fingering weight wool, some fingering weight would work to do this. And all I want to do is come in at one point. I'm going to leave a long tail. And if you've ever duplicate stitched on just some decoration, oh my goodness, Peter, these socks are so, this is why I don't usually do commercial socks. The stitches are tiny and my eyes are wigging out. I'm going to take my glasses off and see if I can see this. What I'm going to try and do.
I have this magnifier.
Yeah,
Look what I found.
Hey, that's awesome, Peter.
Will that work?
I don't know. I don't
Try
know if
it.
it'll work for, let's see. Oh, that works great. Oh, that's awesome. Maybe I can even put my glasses back on and see.
Might even be good using magnifiers even when it's just regular knitting so you can see what you're doing.
I like that. So can you still see with the camera, Peter?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, light. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the stitch. So here the stitch goes up, and it goes over into the next space, and my needle goes through, and I bring it through. And then I sneak back down into this spot, and then I come back up. Whoop. I'm using a tapestry needle, which is mostly blunt. And so here I come into that spot and back over. There are a number of spots online that you can go and see a diagram of a knit stitch. It's kind of like ribbon candy. It goes back and forth and back and forth, and it just catches the other yarn at the tops and bottoms. And so that's all I'm doing is I'm following that stitch, curve up at the top and come back. And here I am going back in, curve across the top, and go back in. Sometimes these things are easier to see in person. I know I'm starting to make a mess of it because I'm not paying close enough attention. In and over. So maybe this is going to be easier to see if I pull a bigger sample. So let me get a bigger sample and we'll be able to show it better. Here, my rows of knit stitches. If I want to do some darning or duplicate stitching, I can come here. I'm going to actually get in the middle. There, now I'm in the middle of a stitch. I'm going to follow the side of the stitch up, around and across, and then I'm going to come back down to here where I started and go over to the next stitch across. So, like I was showing you with my socks, they're worn thin but not completely wholly, and so I can go across and just do this sort of duplicate stitch and reinforce the heel where I've worn my sock. But what I'm trying to do is extend the life of my socks. And so I come back down here. So now I've got a row of 1, 2, 3 duplicate stitches. Now I can go up just a little bit, come back into that previous row. And now I can go start doing the next row up, go across, and just come back, right? So forward and back, filling in those stitches so that I don't end up with a gaping hole. Sometimes these are exercises in patience, and I don't always have the patience for it. So be kind to yourself. If you need to patch a hole with big yarn so that it goes fast, so be it. Just know that it wears differently. It'll feel different on your foot if you've got a big thick patch than if you've got a little tiny one. So, one way of patching a hole. This one is a way of darning socks. I'm not sure it's true darning because it's really just a patch. So I thought I'd show you this. I got it started. This is a pair of commercial wool socks, one of my favorite pairs, but they have worn very thin. You can see how white it is here in this center circle. That's actually just, it's worn. The gray wool has actually rubbed off there. Oh, there's a toe mark too. So before it's a hole, sometimes it's nice to patch it. Quite frankly, I don't usually patch commercial socks. The yarns tend to be too thin for me to work with easily. But when I've got hand knit socks and the stitches are bigger, I certainly will take the time to patch them because it'll extend the life of those hand knit items. But this one, it'll just give you an idea. One of the ways of mending a hole or a worn spot like this is to actually knit a replacement flap. And so what I did with this red thread, which is very crazy fine, is I went through and I picked up a series of stitches. For those of you who are more accomplished knitters and have picked up a collar and put like a collar band or a button band on a sweater, that's the same technique I used to pull stitches through here. I actually used one of our crochet hooks from the shop. We've got some real nice narrow ones that you can use to pick this up. But then I realized that my yarn is so fine, and I didn't bring my little tiny aught or double aught needles. So I started knitting this on a sewing needle. And in case you didn't think I was crazy before, yes, I am totally crazy, and I don't recommend this. But the idea is that you can pick up stitches, knit a flap, and then just sew the flap down and have just a rectangular patch in your sock where there was a hole. It's a very effective way of patching a hole. Is it the smoothest on your foot? No, it can be a little bulky, but it depends on the yarn you're using. So knit a patch, sew it down once you get it done, and it's a way of extending the life of your socks. So that's it for Knit Clinic today. We encourage you to find ways to work with your knitting if you've dropped a stitch, or maybe you've got a pair of socks that you love that they're not quite up to snuff anymore. You can fix them and have fun knitting.